faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally Talking Books. Today, I'm going to introduce you to a book called A Stroll in Aesthetics. It's a collection by the Chinese aesthetics master Zhang Baihua. Oh, when it comes to aesthetics masters, folks might be more familiar with Zhu Wanqian, but historically, Zhang Baihua holds equal stature. Some describe their impact on aesthetics history as two peaks standing opposed. Li Zehu, an aesthetics master and student of both, compared their aesthetic ideas when writing the preface for A Stroll in Aesthetics. He said Zhu Guanqian has a Western scientific mindset, focusing on logic and reasoning, while Zhang Baihua is more like a poet with lyrical Chinese style thinking. Yep, that's spot on. In A Stroll in Aesthetics, Zhang Baihua's traditional Chinese writing shines through brilliantly. The book came out in the 1980s, when China's aesthetics craze was heating up. Back then, most aestheticians' works were super structured and logical, but Zhang Baihua went the opposite way. A Stroll in Aesthetics has no rigid system. The whole book's language is poetic and beautiful, with classical quotes flowing naturally. This comes from his deep roots in Chinese classical culture. Zhang Baihua studied in Germany and is hailed as a master who bridged Chinese and Western art theories. So, in this book, we often see comparisons between Chinese and Western aesthetic views. A Stroll in Aesthetics is made up of over 20 essays. In its seemingly free-flowing, poetic prose, Zhang Baihua explains his Chinese aesthetic vision, especially concepts like shu and shi, yi jing and qi yun. All right, next, let's follow Zhang Baihua's footsteps and take a stroll through aesthetics. The book starts off by asking, where does beauty come from? This brings us to philosophy. Philosophy is a civilization's way of seeing the world, and aesthetics is its extension into art. First, let's talk Western philosophy. From ancient Greece, Plato, Aristotle, it's always probed the world's origins and how we know it. Plato believed in a perfect, abstract, ideal world. What we experience daily isn't the real world. We're like cave dwellers, seeing only shadows from a fire's light. We've been in the cave too long, so we think those shadows are real. Another viewpoint is completely opposite. For instance, Marx didn't believe in such a perfect ideal type existing. What we see with our eyes is real, which is what folks call idealism and materialism. These two philosophical ideas evolved into two central concepts in Western aesthetics. One is the pursuit of perfect harmonious form, like ancient Greek human sculptures, conforming to the golden mathematical proportions of that era's aesthetic ideals. Whether it's men, women, elders, or kids, every sculpture matched this math proportion. The other approach is to totally imitate nature. For example, Renaissance painters would sneak into cemeteries at night to steal corpses and bring them home to study real human structure and proportions. After dissection, the disputes among Western aesthetic schools were basically these two aesthetic ideas clashing. Whether acknowledging an ideal world or not, in Western aesthetics, humans and the world are separate. Zhang Baihua called it subject-object opposition, either tirelessly seeking perfect harmony or simulating nature. Plan is totally different. Among the pre-Qin 100 schools of thought, Confucianism and Taoism had the biggest impact on Chinese philosophy. Cosmologically, Confucianism and Taoism are linked. Both agree with the I Ching that the universe is a yin-yang blend, and all things stem from these two energies intertwining. You could say everything is in constant motion with yin-yang energies, humans, an ant, even the universe. So humans, ants, and the universe can merge into one. Taoism teaches the Tao follows nature. Confucianism proposes harmony between heaven and man. Both say humans can unite with the cosmos and all things. For understanding this view is super important. This is the philosophical foundation Zhang Baihua used to build his Chinese aesthetic view. The key feature of Chinese aesthetics is the blend of Su and Shi. Shi, the Shi of substance, refers to objective things, concrete artworks, the scenery we see. Xu, the Shu of emptiness, refers to human character, thoughts, and emotions. Imagine an era's political, cultural, and spiritual character. This abstract stuff that can't be simply described with concrete objects. Combining Su and Shi, simply put, is turning scenery into emotions and thoughts. It's express the inner spirit of things through realistic imagery, using describable things to convey the indescribable. Let's look at an example. Peking Opera's At the Crossroads, a short martial arts play with a simple story. In Song Dynasty, a general exiled to the frontier stays overnight at an inn. A knight errant wants to secretly protect the general, sneaking into the inn at night but gets discovered by the innkeeper. They fight in the dark lobby. During performance, the only prop is a table. If those set in darkness, the stage must be lit, otherwise the audience couldn't see the show. Through body movements and eye expressions, the actors make audiences feel they're moving in darkness. The darkness is imagined. The performance and stage are real. Drops are tangible. This exemplifies Jushi blend, which creates Yijing. Zhang Baihua considered this concept Chinese art's greatest contribution, the most distinctive aesthetic principle. So what exactly is Yijing? Zhang categorized 5 human Yijing. Utilitarian Yijing satisfies material needs. Human interactions generate emotions and communities. That's ethical Yijing. People live in societies with power dynamics between roles. Thus emerges political Yijing. Seeking wisdom creates academic Yijing, while transcending mundanity yields religious Yijing. Aesthetic Yijing lies between academic and religious, blending concrete objects with human spirit. Simply emotion fused with imagery. When reading poetry, we savor its Yijing. It means appreciating the author's fusion of scenery and emotion. Different feelings transform identical scenes. Take the moon. Li Bai wrote, "Raising my cup, I invite the moon. With my shadow, we become 3. Lonely, desolate, Yijing." Mao Wangwei wrote, "Bright moon shines through pines. Clear brook flows over stones. Serene, tranquil, Yijing." Another example, Bada Shanrun, a Ming Qing painter whose birds or fish had oversized eyes with rolled-up lights, often perched precariously on single branches. His eccentric style is deeply connected to his life story. Bada Shanren, originally named Zhu Da, was a descendant of the Ming imperial family. When the Ming dynasty fell, he was just 19. Afterwards, he pretended to be deaf-mute, shaved his head, and became a monk to survive. His signature Bada Shanren, when written cursively, resembles crying and laughing. His younger brother, also a painter, used the alias Miu Shi, whose signature looks like "I will never bow to a ruler," meaning lifelong defiance. Under Qing rule, Bada Shanren harbored national hatred and personal grief, but with restoration hopeless, channeled pain into his art. The birds and fish he painted appear strikingly cold, lonely, and bizarre. Looking at his paintings, we recognize birds and fish, but are they realistic? Obviously not. No real bird rolls its eyes so dramatically. But the paintings embody his profound emotions and hard-won insights. Their solitary Yijing makes them timeless masterpieces. The depth of Yijing directly correlates with the creator's self-cultivation. Higher cultivation yields more profound Yijing. Actually, Western aesthetics also addresses emotion. The theory of empathy means people project feelings onto external objects under certain conditions. For example, when happy, even rainy days feel refreshing. When unhappy, even bright sunshine feels irritating. But this differs greatly from Chinese Yijing. Though Chinese Yijing blends scene and emotion, it doesn't merely project feelings. It demands higher spiritual attainment from creators. Artists shouldn't focus on personal gains, but purify their hearts to achieve unity with the cosmos. Take limestone. Merchants see profit potential, but Ming poet Yu Qian wrote poems praising its resilience and integrity. The limestone remains limestone. Though both project emotions onto limestone, their cultivation levels create vastly different Yijing, and this pursuit extends beyond poetry to all Chinese arts. All right, next we'll analyze calligraphy, gardens, and painting to see how they embody Chinese aesthetics. The book dedicates most space to painting, so we'll briefly cover calligraphy and gardens first. Now, finally, we'll focus on painting. Okay, let's start with calligraphy, a uniquely Chinese art form. Oh, we all know Chinese characters are pictographic. Legend says ancient people recorded events by tying knots. Big knots for major events, small ones for minor. But over time, knot tying couldn't meet growing recording needs. Then came Minister Kangji. During a southern inspection, he saw star patterns, mountain veins, and animal traces. Inspired, he created symbols that became Chinese characters. Early characters were very like the oracle bone bird character, looked just like a bird. Over time, pictures abstracted into dots and lines. Horizontal, diagonal, vertical strokes became the skeleton. Their combinations formed the flesh, evolving into modern characters. Later, characters developed phonetic elements, representing more things, even abstract ideas. So, can we still say Chinese characters merely imitate nature? They preserve form while developing abstract meaning, using the describable to express the indescribable. That's Shuxi integration. Thus, writing Chinese characters became an art. In Western scripts, whether linear A from Crete or modern Latin letters, or abstract logical symbols from the start. From a Chinese aesthetic view, these are purely shu, hardly possessing beauty. They say you can judge character through handwriting. Same characters, but different spacing, pressure, and strokes make each unique. Calligraphers express emotion, personality, and vision through stroke density, weight, and rhythm. Take Zhang Shu from Tang Dynasty. Outgoing, loved wine, often wrote wildly while drunk, earning the nickname Zhang the Mad. It's said he watched Gongsun Donyang's sword dance, which inspired his signature wild cursive style, each piece flowing in one breath. Some describe his wild cursive as boulders looming overhead or swords bared, frightening to behold. He left few works. One famous piece, Stomach Ache Note, has just 30 characters. Sudden unbearable stomach ache, not sure if cold or heat caused it. Will take rhubarb soup, benefits both cold and heat. How to treat illness without clinical diagnosis. Basically, sudden severe stomach pain, unsure if from chill or fever, decided to drink rhubarb soup, effective for both conditions. The note begins with relatively neat handwriting. From the fourth character, each line flows in single strokes, effortlessly sprawling, letting viewers feel his bold, mad energy. And you can imagine just how bad that stomachache was. Does calligraphy pursue Yixing too? Absolutely. Qing calligrapher Liang Yan assessed Chinese calligraphy. Jin values rhythm, Tang values rules, Song values artistry, Ming values posture. The Wei Jin period was chaotic. No stable regime existed. Scholars then broke free from Han constraints, embracing individuality, creating the free-spirited Wei Jin ethos. Like the famed Seven Sages of Bamboo Grove, drinking, singing in bamboo forests, scorning authority. Under this influence, Wei Jin calligraphy became wildly unrestrained. By Tang Dynasty, China reunified into a vast empire. Tang people valued rules. Their calligraphy reflected this. Tang calligraphers systematized past structures, making it standardized and refined. For instance, Tang master Oyan Xuan wrote 36 methods, structural standards for calligraphy. Tang calligraphy featured uniform alignment and neat characters, mirroring imperial order. Song scholars pursued personal charm. Their poetry lacked Tang's imperial grandeur, focusing instead on self-cultivation. By Yuan and Ming dynasties, feudal empires were declining. no longer matching Tang Song's cultural brilliance. Scholars turn nostalgic, imitating predecessors' calligraphy while refining character forms. Yuan calligrapher Zhao Mengfu insisted that despite structural changes, ancient brush techniques must be preserved. Thus, Yuan Ming calligraphy focused intensely on replicating classical forms. Viewing calligraphy from different eras, we perceive their zeitgeist and scholars' inner worlds. That's Yu Jing's charm. All right, next let's discuss gardens. Gardens are quintessentially Chinese. Imperial complexes like Yuanming Yuan and Summer Palace. But even Jiannan homes have courtyards as miniature gardens. These spaces must serve both habitation and aesthetic appreciation. Chinese architecture blends with nature, unlike Western structures that separate buildings from environment. Like in British dramas, aristocratic manors stand on lawns, gardens separated outside. Nobles exit buildings for tea or flower viewing. But Chinese gardens integrate scenery and architecture. Windows play crucial roles in garden artistry. Take Summer Palace's Leshu Hall. Numerous small windows frame outdoor greenery and lakes, each acting like a painting connecting indoors to nature. Zhu Fu wrote, "My window holds the snow of western mountains. My door oft moors the boats from eastern Wu." Even indoors, his mind embraced vast nature and cosmos, thoughts unbounded by physical space. See how Chinese people, even building small courtyards, create far-reaching vision. Human thought is Su. Window frame scenery is both Shi, real nature, and Su. Their connection through windows embodies garden Zu, Da Shi integration. In a stroll in aesthetics, Zhang Baihua extensively compares Chinese and Western painting. All right, next, let's see how Chinese aesthetics manifest in painting. Recently there's this viral joke online. Chinese art appreciation still focuses on playing so fast, singing so high, painting so realistically. By that standard, Chinese painting would be hard to appreciate. In Chinese painting, realism is actually quite basic. So what counts as advanced? This leads to a crucial concept, qiyun dash qi, meaning vital energy, yun meaning rhythm. Earlier we discussed Chinese philosophy, everything combines yin-yang energies. This combination isn't static, it's dynamic. Qiyun refers to this flowing rhythm. Zhang Baihua called it the rhythm of life. A true artist doesn't just capture appearances, they grasp the core qiyun. This requires inner contemplation. Simultaneously, erase your presence. Don't show technique. Dissolve into the subject to highlight its essence. Art should spark imagination and insight. That's supreme qiyun. This concept appears not just in painting, but also calligraphy and poetry. Take Chinese landscape painting, the most representative example. Chinese landscapes use three distances: high, deep, and level. What does this mean? High distance, looking up from mountain foot, peaks appear steep, using light ink. Deep distance, viewing behind mountains, depths rendered with darker ink. Level distance, viewing distant mountains from nearby peaks, ethereal effects with mixed ink tones. Oh, notice something? A single landscape employs three perspectives, directly connecting to Chinese aesthetics. Chinese landscape painting cares not about realism, but qiyun and yijing, using art to express the creator's vision of cosmos. As Wang Shiji wrote in Lanting Shu, looking up at cosmos' vastness, observing Earth's abundance, capturing this essence, unlike Western art, perspective is their core technique, using geometric calculations to create virtual spatial depth on flat surfaces. During Qing Dynasty, Western painting techniques entered China. An Italian missionary, Giuseppe Castiglione, even became a court painter. But renowned painter Zhu Yigui despised Western perspective techniques. He said Westerners painted palace walls so realistically they seemed walkable. But that's just craftsman's skill, unrelated to true artistic painting. He believed true art should be Chinese style, not constrained by reality, but revealing qiyun and yijing, that intangible essence you sense but can't articulate. Remember Western aesthetics we discussed earlier? Two core Western concepts: completely imitating nature for realism. The other focuses solely on abstract formal beauty for mathematical harmony. But 20th century Expressionism abandoned realism, lighting, even perspective, only expressing inner turmoil, not fleeting moments. To break through appearances and reveal eternal truths, images were exaggerated, distorted, with intense colors. Hey, you might ask. Both Expressionism and Chinese painting reject realism and convey the indescribable. Are they the same? Actually, they're quite different. Expressionism emerged in early 20th century industrialized West. Many became factory workers. Repeating assembly line tasks daily like machine cogs, people became tools, oppressed, stripped of freedom. Artworks then, including paintings, reflected this anguish and uncertainty. Hence, paintings featured grotesque distortions and clashing colors. Creators deemed only subjectivity and emotion real, rejecting the objective world. Chinese painting, while not realistic, integrates humans with the cosmos. Chinese artists neither embrace realism nor reject objectivity, but fuse both. Thus, Chinese painting reveals serene, profound charm. Whether creators or audiences, their hearts are peaceful, even when filled with sorrow. Bada Shannon's paintings are also cold and clean, revealing pain. Compared to Expressionism, it's more peaceful. Chinese and Western aesthetics each have unique traits without hierarchy. So, are Chinese and Western aesthetic views completely opposed? Of course not. There are similarities between them. It's fascinating to interpret Chinese art from a Western perspective or appreciate Western art from a Chinese viewpoint. In A Stroll in Aesthetics, Zhang Baihua appreciated Rodin's sculptures from a Chinese aesthetic perspective. Rodin was the greatest realist sculptor from the 19th to 20th century, bridging modern and contemporary sculpture. Some even compare his status to Dante's in European literature. Rodin was born into a poor family. In school, unable to afford oil paints, he turned to sculpture. At the start of his career, too poor to hire models, he asked a flat-nosed beggar to pose for him. Well, in the beggar's face, Rodin saw humanity's shared sorrow and desolation, thus giving birth to his famous sculptures. His works like The Thinker and The Burghers of Calais depict human tragic and sublime emotions through suffering figures. As we discussed earlier, Chinese aesthetics involves Su, Shi integration, abandoning meticulous depiction of appearances to express Qiyun, and infusing creators' emotions and thoughts to manifest Yijing. Thus, Chinese painters sometimes abandon form to chase the shadow, giving up concrete shapes to value the shadow of things. There's an ancient Chinese legend. When painting bamboo, Lady Li was never satisfied. One night, under a bright moon, bamboo shadows cast on the window. She traced them with a brush on the window paper. The next morning, she woke to see the painting on the window, fully capturing the bamboo's Qiyun. Since then, ink bamboo paintings have lasted a millennium, and Rodin sculptures also emphasize shadow. To observe light and shadow changes, he often visited Gothic cathedrals to take notes. Later, these notes were compiled into a book called French Cathedrals, and in this book, he meticulously recorded his observations and reflections on cathedrals, like his admiration for how light and shadow transformed in cathedrals. He believed cathedrals embodied principles of balance, contrast, and harmony. He applied this shadow imagery to his sculptures, creating his signature style. Ancient Greek and Roman sculptures pursued smooth surfaces and harmonious geometric proportions. But Rodin's work didn't chase that. His sculptures captured emotions and movements of ordinary people, old women, beggars, and such. Through facial expressions, he aimed to reveal personal histories and the zeitgeist of an era. The late 19th to early 20th century was Europe's era of radical intellectual transformation. Rodin sought fundamental spirits of this age and expressed them through statues. First was labor, sacred in that industrial age, central to all issues, so he created the Tower of Labor. Second was intellectual labor. In the 20th century, Europe's scientific explosion meant everyone pondered new ideas. Thus, Rodin created the thinker. Third was love, like spiritual and physical union. That's why his sculptures often depicted embraces and kisses. Rodin's works imitate nature yet transcend literal forms, blending his thoughts on reality. In this way, his sculptures resonate with Chinese aesthetics. Okay, finally, let's wrap things up. A Stroll in Aesthetics is Zhang Baihua's essay collection, not dense theories, but casual reflections on Chinese aesthetics. Traditional Chinese arts, calligraphy, painting, architecture, all embody Zhu Shi integration. Creators abstract concrete forms to capture Qiyun, fusing it with their emotions and thoughts. This aesthetic has continually inspired Chinese creators. Take writer Wan Zhengyi. He avoided grand themes and epics. These essays often spotlight fruits, ducks, local foods. Unlike modern food blogs obsessing over recipes and tastes, through food, he wrote about life. His pieces don't just make you hungry, they touch your soul. During the Republic era, the renowned monk Master Hong Yi proposed three realms of perception. First, seeing mountains as mountains. Second, seeing mountains not as mountains. Third, seeing mountains still as mountains. Actually, this perfectly interprets Chinese aesthetics. In the first stage, seeing mountains as mountains, people perceive only physical forms, pure realism. This is what Zhang Baihua called having Shi without Su. In the second stage, seeing mountains not as mountains, people transcend imitation, seeking the core Qiyun. This enters a purely abstract realm, Zhang's using Su as Su. In the third stage, seeing mountains still as mountains, concrete and abstract fuse, connecting self, mountain, and cosmos. This is Zhang's Su-Shi integration, creating supreme Eugene, Chinese aesthetics' highest realm. All right, that's our interpretation of A Stroll in Aesthetics. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.